You've done everything they told you to do. Worked hard, woke up early, stayed up late, sacrificed precious moments with your loved ones, saved every penny, cut spending, looked for smart ways to invest. You've tried so hard that sometimes even you don't understand why you still haven't escaped the financial spiral. And when the end of the month comes, everything resets. The bills still line up, the feeling of scarcity still lingers in your chest, and a quiet sigh escapes, even though you know it won't solve anything. If you feel there's something unfair about all of this, you're right. But the unfairness doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from something you were never taught. Money doesn't come to you because you try hard. It comes because you're either broadcasting the right frequency to receive it, or you're not. Frequency isn't some mystical concept. It's the language through which the material world responds to your thoughts, emotions, and deeply held beliefs. You can't see it, but you live inside it. You broadcast it every time you think about money, talk about money, or make decisions involving money. And you're receiving results from that very frequency day after day, year after year. Others may look at you and think you're lazy, unstrategic, or missing opportunities, but you know that's not true. You've done far more than they realize. You've read books, learned, practiced. You've sacrificed more than you ever thought you could. The problem isn't your effort, it's the vibrational foundation from which that effort is being generated. If you're emitting a frequency of lack, anxiety, doubt, and low self-worth, then no matter how much action you take, money won't stay with you. It simply responds to the exact signal you're sending. This is where 95% of the world gets stuck. They act from a place of insecurity, invest from a place of fear, spend with a sense of guilt, and set financial goals while doubting themselves. They use words like not enough, difficult, and struggling as automatic reflexes, not realizing that each time they do, they're rewriting their financial programming, reinforcing a frequency that's misaligned with abundance. The trap is this: the more you try from the wrong vibration, the more the results reinforce the wrong belief. You do more, achieve less. And then you tell yourself, maybe I'm just not good with money, maybe I'm not meant to be wealthy. No, you're not lacking ability, you're just broadcasting the wrong frequency. And that very frequency is causing all your effort to disappear into thin air. I was once exactly where you are, stressed every time I checked my bank balance. Believed that if I just worked one more job, learned one more skill, read one more book, then everything would change. But it didn't, because deep down, I still carried a frequency of scarcity. I feared losing, doubted my ability to hold on to money, and didn't truly believe I deserved abundance. And because of that, every outward action, no matter how rational, was nullified by the hidden energy I was unconsciously radiating. It's like trying to tune a radio but choosing the wrong station. No matter how great the show is on the right frequency, you'll never hear it if you're on the wrong one. The transformation only began when I realized this, when I paused and asked myself, why are there people who do less than I do, even know less than I do, and yet money flows to them as if it's the most natural thing? The answer wasn't knowledge or effort. It was magnetic alignment. They don't work to become rich. They are rich in the way they think and how they see themselves, in their attitude toward life, and their actions are simply the natural extension of that inner state. When you broadcast the right frequency, money doesn't just come, it stays. And here's the key. You can learn to change that frequency, starting from within, without waiting for your circumstances to shift. Be honest with yourself. Every time you think about money, what's the first emotion that shows up? Anxiety, insecurity, tension, or guilt when you spend on yourself? Those emotions aren't random reactions. They are the traces of unconscious programs that have existed for years, maybe since you were a child. Hearing your parents worry about money, being taught that success requires self-sacrifice, or witnessing wealthy people being criticized for living extravagantly. And your subconscious stored it all. It creates a silent vibration that shapes everything you experience. If you don't change it, you'll stay trapped in a loop of scarcity. No matter how many jobs you change, courses you take or plans you make. But the truth is, money doesn't distinguish between good or bad people. It doesn't favor the hardworking or the intelligent. It only responds to aligned vibrations. And you, right now, are fully capable of tuning into that vibration. You don't need another 10 years of experience. You don't need to earn every degree in the world. And you don't need some miraculous turning point in life. You just need to start recognizing that everything on the outside is only a result of what's happening on the inside. Recognize that you're not lacking money. You're just not on the right frequency to allow it to appear. And the moment you agree to shift this, even slightly, your entire financial flow will begin to change, not because you prayed for it, but because you have changed. Now you have a choice. Keep acting from the same old state and hope for new results, or be brave enough to reset your entire vibrational system and step into a state where wealth is no longer a struggle, but a natural consequence. If you truly understand that what you're living is not an objective reality, but merely a vibrational reflection, then you already hold a power that most of the world has never recognized. And that's when money won't feel far away anymore, because you're no longer far from yourself. There's a truth not everyone wants you to know. Money does not operate according to the logic you were taught in school. It does not follow the straight line of degree, effort, then reward. The wealthiest people you've ever heard of don't follow the system you're caught in. They walk a different path, a quiet one, where wealth is created not only by knowledge, but by alignment with principles the rest of the world calls mysterious. And the foundation of that path is not a modern method, not artificial intelligence, but an old manuscript that has been kept hidden from the majority for decades. A book passed from hand to hand among those who don't need to flaunt their wealth, but have mastered it at the root. That book is not displayed on the center shelf of bookstores. It's not on the bestseller list, because it was never marketed to the public. Those who possess it don't read it for entertainment, but to completely reprogram their mental framework about money. And what makes it hidden is not that it's wrong, but that it's too right. It's so right that it upends the entire value system society taught you to believe in, that you must suffer to deserve wealth, that money is a tangible limit everyone must struggle to reach, that only a select few are destined for wealth. These beliefs, once you touch the first page of the book, begin to shatter, like the brittle shell of an outdated belief. The book's origin isn't found in university libraries or academic research. It began with failure. A man who was once very successful, wealthy, and had everything society labeled as accomplished suddenly lost it all in a financial collapse. But instead of returning to the starting line and trying to rebuild his life using old strategies, he did something radical. He withdrew completely from the world, living in seclusion for 7 years, not to escape, but to understand why money comes easily to some, while others struggle their entire lives without escape. What he discovered during those 7 years wasn't just experience, it was a hidden system of laws, invisible principles that operate with the precision of mathematics. From what he wrote down, a manuscript was formed. It wasn't published, not widely distributed, but quietly shared among a small group. People of influence, people who had real results, people who needed deep understanding rather than more tips and tricks. And among those who came into contact with it, transformation began to occur, not loudly, not boastfully, but steadily and deeply. Strangely enough, those who applied the manuscript's principles never spoke of it. They didn't go around preaching. They simply lived in a different vibrational mode, and wealth began to appear as a natural result. Because one of the greatest truths this book teaches is money is not a reward for effort, but a response to right understanding. You can work 18 hours a day and still feel poor. You can save every cent and still be lacking. Because money doesn't respond to behavior, it responds to frequency. And most people act from a frequency of fear, lack, and need, while the truly wealthy, wealthy from within, act from a quiet certainty. They don't beg for money, they allow money to come. It is because of this reversal that those who understand the manuscript's principles don't easily share them. They know that if you're still tightly attached to the mindset of trading effort for money, then any high-level knowledge about financial energy will be misunderstood or twisted into a tool to push yourself to do even more. And so, silence becomes part of the protection process, not to withhold knowledge, but to avoid planting it in the wrong soil. But now, as you begin to realize that your effort was never the issue, that you've been following an outdated vibrational system, you have a chance to touch a deeper level, where money is no longer the goal, but the mirror reflecting you. The most subtle truth that the truly wealthy never say out loud is, they don't chase money. They don't ask, how can I get more? They ask, how can I become the kind of person money seeks out? This difference isn't found in Excel sheets or financial strategies. It lies in the structure of the mind, where the words you use, the emotions you hold, and the images you repeat every time you think of money are forming a unique electromagnetic field. And it's this field, not the reasons you think, that's shaping the flow of money in your life. That's why this book, even though it was written decades ago, has never become outdated, because it's not based on circumstances or markets. It's based on the laws of energetic fields, something modern science is only beginning to touch, but ancient minds already intuitively lived by. And the miracle is, you don't need to change the world. The shift begins the moment you stop asking, what should I do to get money? And start asking, who am I being in my relationship with money? That is the first question and the beginning of every transformation. And if you're brave enough to answer it honestly, the rest of the journey will begin to unfold. Not as a miracle from the outside, but as a powerful, quiet, and increasingly clear flow as you return to the very frequency prosperity has always been waiting for you to step into. Money does not speak the language of suffering. It doesn't understand begging, complaining, or fear. The words you keep repeating, like, I don't have enough, I'm broke, or how am I going to survive this month? These aren't empty phrases, they're signals. And every signal you send out carries a frequency. The universe doesn't respond with pity. It responds with precision to what you emit. So if you live on the frequency of lack, you will be given more reasons to keep feeling that lack. On the other hand, if you align with the frequency of abundance, you don't have to prove yourself or compete. Money comes on its own. Not because you forced it, but because you've become the place where it hears its familiar call. Most people approach money as if they're speaking to a foreign creature. They treat it with fear, anger, and suspicion. They invoke its name in stress, think about it in exhaustion, and teach their children about it with a heavy tone, and then they wonder why money stays away from them. But you can't maintain a relationship with anything if you don't understand its language. And money, it doesn't hear your voice, it hears your frequency. And that frequency is formed by how you think, feel, and believe. Imagine you're a radio transmitter. Every day you emit a specific frequency, invisible but spreading through the entire field of consciousness around you. If you're broadcasting on the frequency of, I'm always lacking, then you'll never hear the music of prosperity, because that music plays on a different frequency, clear, calm, confident, and abundant. You can desire it, envy those living within it, even try to mimic them, but if you don't change the channel, you'll never hear it. And when you don't hear it, you'll start to believe it doesn't exist. Poor people often think the rich are just lucky. They believe success is a privilege reserved for someone on another level. But what they don't know is that other level isn't something society built. It's an energetic level each person emits. Truly wealthy people live in harmony with the cycle of money. They don't strain to hold on to it because they understand that money comes and goes, and they are part of that flow. Their dominant emotion when talking about money isn't fear or obsession. It's calm, respect, and sometimes even gratitude. That vibrational stability is what allows money to find them easily, not because they ask, but because they are compatible. Money reacts like a resonance wave. It looks for individuals with matching frequencies to connect to. If you don't shift your internal frequency, all the financial strategies in the world are useless. You can change jobs, work more hours, save every penny, learn new skills, but if your belief and emotional system continues to broadcast signals like, I don't deserve this, I'm always lacking, or I have to work hard just to get by, then money will always arrive in unstable, short-term, or barely sufficient forms. It will never become prosperity. So what is the right frequency? It's not deluding yourself into saying, I'm rich when your bank account is empty. It's not repeating hollow affirmations while still trembling at the thought of spending. The right frequency begins with deep honesty with yourself. Look closely at how you feel when you think about money. Listen to the sensations in your body each time you look at a bill or decide to buy something for yourself. Is it anxiety, guilt, or hesitation? Those very emotions are generating your electromagnetic field. And what you need first is not more money, but a change in the emotional quality you attach to money. Money doesn't come from the outside, it's drawn in from the inside. Those who understand this don't live in waiting. They create a field that is clear enough, steady enough, quiet enough for money to recognize the signal and find its way. This is not shallow positive thinking, nor is it sitting around dreaming. This is vibrational science where your mind, emotions, and actions are synchronized within one cohesive system. When you truly believe from within that you are a creator of value, that you are worthy of abundance, and that you no longer vibrate in fear, then your outward actions naturally gain magnetic force. You'll speak differently, make different decisions, show up with an energy that others can feel, even if they can't explain why. You don't need to say, I want money. You need to live in the state of, I am already the place where money feels safe to dwell. That is the language money understands. It doesn't reason, it resonates. And every time you complain about expenses, grumble about prices, or blame life for being unfair, you're not just emitting a resistant energy, you're pushing money further away. Not because you're bad, but because you're speaking a language money can't recognize. Like two people speaking different languages, no matter how close they stand, they won't understand each other if there's no common frequency. Another subtle truth is, money doesn't like obsession. When you're overly thirsty, you're also broadcasting the frequency of lack, not readiness. Many believe that if they just desire enough, the universe will answer. But no, the universe responds to vibrational state, not emotional intensity. Desire that comes from gratitude, excitement, and openness creates a magnetic field. But desire laced with worry, impatience, and torment only pulls you deeper into dissonant frequencies. Remember, money is not attracted to those who need it. It's attracted to those who are compatible with it. When you understand the language of money, you no longer need to control it. You only need to control your own frequency. Every morning you wake up, your first emotional state is already a signal. Every spending decision, every reaction to financial surprises is rewriting your vibrational code. You can choose to live in the language of lack or begin learning to speak the language that money can recognize: stillness, abundance, reverence. And from that place, you'll no longer have to chase money, because money only comes to those who know how to send out the signal that calls it in. And when your signal is clear, you'll realize money was never the problem. The only thing unclear was the frequency you were sending, not strong enough yet for it to recognize that you were the one it was looking for. Maria wasn't born into privilege. She's a 42-year-old single mother living in a small rented apartment, working as an administrative assistant at an ordinary company. Every day she wakes up at 5 a.m. to get her child ready for school, squeezes into the morning rush to get to work, and returns home in the evening too exhausted to have a proper dinner. She's used to paying bills late, rotating credit cards, and hesitating even over basic necessities. But the most painful thing wasn't her bank balance, it was the deep sense of helplessness inside her. the feeling that she was doing everything she possibly could and still couldn't break free from the invisible grip of scarcity. She wasn't lazy, ignorant, or unwilling to try, but she was poor and didn't understand why, until she began applying the principles in the manuscript you've heard about. There was no miracle, no major event happened. She didn't win the lottery, no one handed her a life-changing opportunity. What changed was her internal magnetic field. On the first day, she did just one thing. She observed how she spoke about money. Instead of repeating the phrase, "I can't," she began asking, "If I really wanted to, what opportunity could I create?" That shift seemed small, but it was the lever that opened up an entirely different vibrational system. Within a few weeks, she no longer felt guilty spending on herself. Within 2 months, she started feeling confident enough to request a conversation with her manager about her salary. The strange thing was, she didn't even have to demand. It was offered. Not only a raise, but enrollment in an internal training program for a higher position. 6 months later, her income had doubled. But what truly changed wasn't the number. It was the sense of ownership, calm, and sufficiency that began to settle into her as a default state. Carlos, 38, was a businessman in the traditional sense. He had started 3 ventures, each launched with fire and passion, each ending in burnout. The ideas were always solid at the start, the products well received, customers enthusiastic, but as soon as it was time to scale, everything began to crack. Partners pulled out, cash flow dried up, teams fell apart. He used to believe he was cursed with bad luck. At one point, he even thought he was under a financial curse. Despite having skills and ambition, he kept returning to square one. Every time he failed, he tried harder, studied more, sacrificed more, but the results stayed the same. And Carlos began to look inward, not through strategy, but through the energy he was emitting. He realized he had a deep internal belief that he had to struggle to be worthy of success. The warrior archetype had sunk so deeply into him that if things went smoothly, he felt unsafe. He would unconsciously create problems just to feel aligned with his familiar identity. Recognizing this shocked him, but from that point on, he began practicing a new way of being in his work. No more chasing busyness, no more needing recognition for sacrifice, no longer operating from fear of failure. He shifted from working to prove to working in alignment. A year later, his new business not only produced consistent profits, but was also approached by investors. But what made Carlos smile was this: for the first time in his life, it felt easy, not because it was easy, but because he had stopped creating struggle just to feel deserving. Anna is the last story I want you to hear. She's 55, works as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, lives frugally, never wastes money. But she had never felt financially secure. Though she had no debt and a modest savings, she constantly lived in the mindset of what if something bad happens? Anna didn't invest, didn't take risks, didn't trust that money could grow. Every financial decision she made was shaped by one thing: she was afraid of becoming a bad person. She had seen wealthy people become corrupted. As a child, she heard phrases like, "The rich are greedy," "Wealth makes people heartless," "Money ruins morals." And deep in her mind, she associated wealth with coldness, with emotional detachment. So every time money started to come in, she rejected it. Not with words, but with subconscious behaviors. Missing opportunities, refusing promotions, avoiding higher-paying roles. A part of her believed that if she became wealthy, she would no longer be herself. It wasn't until she read a passage in the manuscript. Money is an amplifier, not a corrupter. It magnifies what already exists in you, for better or worse, that she dared to face the truth. The issue wasn't money, it was the narrative she had attached to it. She began to rewrite her definition of prosperity, not as luxury, not as power, but as the ability to choose without being coerced by fear. Bit by bit, she learned to receive money as a natural flow. Within a year, she not only tripled her net worth, but also invested in a small project she had loved for years, something she once deemed an unnecessary indulgence. But the greatest reward wasn't the number, it was the feeling of freedom. For the first time in over 30 years of working, she wasn't just earning a living, she was living. All three, Maria, Carlos, and Ana, are not much different from you. They didn't start with privilege. They didn't touch the manuscript and suddenly become rich as if by magic. But they had the courage to look deeper into the space no one teaches you about in school, where no conventional financial advice ever points. They changed from the place where all results begin, the vibrational root within. And when that magnetic field changed, their behavior changed. When behavior changed, opportunities came. And when opportunities came, they no longer repeated old patterns. They stepped into a new current. It wasn't a temporary shift, it was a lasting transformation, starting from no longer operating through the voice of fear and learning to emit the signal money can recognize, I am ready. You weren't born with a scarcity mindset. You were programmed to believe that lack is default, that it's natural, that it's an unchangeable reality. But that reality is not a truth. It's a belief system that was planted in you when you were too young to resist. Every seemingly harmless phrase spoken in your family, we can't afford that. Don't be greedy. You think money falls from the sky, rich people are all liars, maybe if we win the lottery someday. These were lines of code, and once the code is installed, no one needs to punish you anymore. You will cut off the flow of abundance before it even has the chance to reach you. You think you're making choices, but in reality, your subconscious conditioning is choosing for you. You think you can't because you're not skilled enough, not lucky enough, don't have enough capital. But deeper down, there's a preloaded belief, I don't belong to abundance. That feeling is not a fact. It's the product of repeated exposure to normalized scarcity. If, since childhood, you've heard phrases like, save every penny, don't dream too big, being rich means being selfish, no matter how hard you work, it's never enough, then even if you grow up learning all the right financial knowledge, you'll still be held back by an unnamed feeling. Guilt when you have plenty, unease when you feel secure, or a sense that you're betraying your family if you live differently than the tradition of endurance. That's why so many people work themselves to the bone yet see no change in results. They assume that hard work and diligence will eventually make things better. But if you've been programmed to see money as dangerous, shameful, or as something that corrupts people, you'll unconsciously sabotage yourself. You'll self-destruct the moment abundance begins to appear. You'll spend it all just to return to the familiar zone, surviving but never right. Why? Because the subconscious doesn't prioritize success, it prioritizes familiarity. And if scarcity is the place you've lived in for too long, abundance will make you feel lost. The irony is you can be smart, educated, skilled, and still be controlled by an emotional program that was formed when you were a child who knew nothing about money. And if you've never questioned the phrases your parents used to repeat, the way they handled money in front of you, then chances are you're still carrying their mindset even though you're living in a completely different era. Don't misunderstand this. This is not about blaming those who raised you. Completely unready, they gave you the best they had, survival. But survival is not the destination, and you have the right to choose a different level of living. If you're brave enough to dismantle the old code that's running your financial destiny, scarcity programming usually comes with three major expressions: fear of loss, fear of risk, and fear of unworthiness. You can recognize this every time you consider investing in yourself, learning a new skill, joining a coaching program, or even just buying something that makes you feel elevated. Instantly, the old voice rises up. What if it's a waste of money? Don't be extravagant. I'm not that kind of person. Sound familiar? Those thoughts are not your own. They are echoes of a collective belief system embedded in you through generations. And if you don't change it, you'll keep passing it down to the next generation, even if that's the last thing you'd ever want. You are not poor because you are lacking. You are poor because you're broadcasting from a frequency where wealth feels unnatural. And what forms that frequency is not learned knowledge, but conditioned emotion. That emotion doesn't vanish by reading a book, and it doesn't get erased after a seminar. It only begins to change when you dare to look directly at how you were programmed and consciously rewrite a new source code. You rewrite it by creating new experiences. Instead of shrinking from money, you learn to welcome it like a companion. Instead of feeling guilty when you receive more, you focus on the real value you're creating. Instead of retreating in fear, you open in gratitude. This isn't surface behavior. This is inner work, the work of the awakened. You cannot emit the frequency of abundance while still clinging to memories of scarcity. Childhood scars of debt, financial arguments, and rejections because you didn't have enough don't disappear just because you've grown up. They live in your reaction system. Every time you face a new financial opportunity, you're not responding as the adult you are. You're reacting as the child who once feared instability. And if you don't recognize this, you'll keep repeating the same pattern, just in a more adult form, but still as limiting as before. Financial freedom doesn't begin with an Excel spreadsheet. It begins with the courage to ask, who is making these choices for me? And if you're brave enough to hear the answer, you'll see it's not the outside world that's keeping you from having enough. It's the internal programming that's anchoring you to a frequency money can't enter. The good news is every program can be rewritten, but you must begin by shedding the old suit, the belief system stitched together from fear, doubt, and resignation. You must choose again. I will not live by the operating system of the generation before me. I honor them, but I no longer belong to the scarcity model. And from that decision, you don't just change your bank balance, you begin to rewrite the vibrational legacy for those who come after you. Money doesn't come because you need it. Money comes because you're ready to receive it at the right frequency. This world doesn't operate by desire, it operates by alignment. Just like radio waves, you can't listen to a song playing on 102.5 FM if your device is tuned to 89.3. No matter how beautiful the song is, no matter how much you crave it, you still can't access it unless you tune into the correct frequency. Money works the same way. It's always around you. It's circulating, moving, being created and redistributed nonstop. But if you're operating at the frequency of fear, scarcity, and doubt, you'll only attract situations that reinforce that same vibration. Aligning with abundance is not daydreaming. It's an intentional act of tuning your inner energy. And the paradox is this: most people wait for money to come before they allow themselves to feel abundance, gratitude, or strength. But because they're waiting, they never receive. Because in the state of waiting, they're emitting one core signal: I don't have. I'm lacking. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to the frequency you constantly emit through your emotions, beliefs, and behaviors. If deep inside you is a series of scarcity-based emotions, you can't fool the material flow with a few cheerful affirmations. The only thing that can change your reality is real alignment from within. Alignment doesn't come from imagining a luxurious life and posting fake highlights online. It starts when you stop saying, I will have, and begin living as if you're already in that state. Not out of pretense, but from a core level shift in belief. You may not have $1 million in your bank account, but if you invest in yourself daily, if you create real value, if you spend money with respect and purpose, if you build systems instead of chasing short-term results, then you're operating on the frequency of sustainable wealth. The question isn't how do I get money? The real question is how do I become the kind of person money wants to come near? And the answer always begins with your core emotional state. Ask yourself, are you living like someone abundant or someone in lack? Not based on how much money you're holding, but based on how you breathe, how you talk about life, how you respond to risk. People aligned with abundance don't make decisions out of fear of loss. They make them out of a desire to expand. They don't spend to escape emotions. They spend to reinforce value. They don't work from survival panic. They work from a belief that they're contributing to something larger than themselves. I've seen people who had very little but lived as if they radiated light. They didn't complain, didn't worry, didn't shrink every time the outer world shifted. They held a steady rhythm, grateful for every small opportunity, approaching their work with a long-term builder's mindset. Strangely, money didn't come to them from where they expected, but through unexpected connections, surprising offers, and what seemed like random events. But nothing is random. When you align with the right frequency, you don't have to chase money. Money finds you, because money is always drawn to places with value, with inner order, with calm vibrational stability. I'm not telling you to sit still and wait for the universe to deposit money into your account. Alignment is not passivity. On the contrary, it is the highest form of discipline. Discipline in emotion, discipline in thought, and especially discipline in your daily vibration. You must become a constant observer. Every time you fall into fear, you have to bring yourself back to center. Every time you feel jealousy, you must remind yourself, I'm not lacking, I'm just not tuned in yet. Every time you want to control everything, you must learn to release and trust the flow. It's not easy, but this is the first law, and it's the foundation for any real financial transformation. Money doesn't come because you force it. Money comes because you are fertile ground for it to multiply. And that fertile ground is not IQ, degrees, or starting position. It is a vibration you emit daily. When you act from a place of fullness, you will act differently. You won't try to sell yourself for a paycheck. You'll choose where to plant seeds wisely. You'll see your own value before the world affirms it. And you'll stop asking, when will I finally have money? And start asking, what do I need to fine-tune in order to broadcast the frequency of someone who's already ready? From that moment on, you're no longer someone begging for results. You're someone activating reality, not through force, but through precision, calibrated down to the smallest vibrational details. And once you align, money is no longer the issue, because you don't just attract it, you sustain it, multiply it, and turn it into a tool that expands your purpose. This is not fantasy. This is law. And law doesn't require belief to work. It only requires that you be awake enough to live in alignment with it. You're not living according to your bank balance. You're living according to the frequency you emit every single day. Money doesn't fall into the hands of those who are more deserving, nor does it slip away from those who are unlucky. Money comes and stays based on compatible frequency. It isn't governed by hard work, degrees, or appearance. All external factors are merely supportive. The root lies in the energetic state you're living in, thinking from, and feeling through, even if you're unaware of it. That's why two people doing the same job, in the same place, with the same tools, can end up with completely different financial outcomes. One constantly thriving, the other always short. It's not talent, it's not the market, it's vibration. Each person emits an invisible wave, shaped by their core beliefs, dominant emotions, and inner dialogue they carry each day. That wave is like a signal broadcast into the space around them, without words, without announcements, without marketing. And that signal sends a simple message to the world. This is who I am. If your frequency says, I never have enough, I'm afraid to lose, I don't know how to keep money, then the situations you attract will do their job, respond precisely to what you're broadcasting. Even if you land a big contract, win the lottery, or have someone hand you a large sum of money, if your core frequency still bears the signature of scarcity, you'll find a way to waste it, sabotage it, or subconsciously reject the opportunity. Many people think money is just a physical object, but money is condensed energy, and it's always drawn toward places that match its frequency. When you emit the frequency of abundance, you don't have to strain to prove yourself. You don't need to control everything. You walk into a room and your energy speaks for you. You work and others feel your confidence, your steadiness, your openness. They want to invest in you, not because you're the best, but because you radiate stability, trust, and genuine connection. That's not a skill, that's frequency. Do a self-check. Every morning when you wake up, what do you think about money? Are you anxious, fearful, or do you feel excited about another day to create value? When you spend, do you feel guilty or grateful? When you see someone wealthier, do you admire or resent them? Every answer reveals the frequency you're living in. And no answer is wrong, only answers that haven't yet been illuminated. When you become aware of what you're broadcasting, only then do you gain the power to shift it. And if you don't shift it, you'll remain stuck in the loop. Earn, lose, earn again, lose again. And blame the economy, other people, or fate. Change doesn't come from forcing yourself to think positively by faking smiles or covering your walls in affirmations. You can't fool the universe with performance. True vibration always cuts through language. Real change begins only when you clear your inner space. When you dare to name your fear of money, your discomfort with abundance, your sense of unworthiness when others want to invest in you. When you confront what you've been avoiding, the image of your father's furrowed brow over money, your mother losing sleep over financial worries, the mocking words from relatives when you dared to dream big, all of these are sources of vibration that are still operating you unconsciously. You cannot emit a frequency of abundance if your heart is still loaded with wounds about money. But you can heal, and in doing so, change your frequency code. When you begin to make peace with money, you'll see money never hated you. It's simply been waiting for you to send the right signal to reconnect. It doesn't come to change who you are. It comes to reflect the person you've chosen to become. And if you're broadcasting the frequency of someone who knows they create value, who is ready to receive, and who no longer conditions self-worth on account balances, money will come without needing to be summoned. Frequency alignment is not some distant mystical trick. It's a process of choosing to live intentionally, refining your reactions, and staying connected to the emotional core you want to sustain, regardless of external conditions. Those aligned with abundance don't just act successful, they are successful in their mindset, habits, and micro decisions. And that's exactly why money recognizes them, because they've already recognized themselves. The world doesn't give you what you wish for. It reflects exactly who you are through every wave you emit. Want your finances to change? Don't chase the result. Go back and tune the frequency, because when you broadcast the right signal, money is no longer the goal. It becomes the natural byproduct of the version of you that is elevating itself every day. Don't rush to answer "I love money" or "I want to be rich," because that's just a reflex from the surface of your consciousness. What I'm asking is this: in the moment you close your eyes and picture money, not with your logic, but with your body, what emotion shows up first? That feeling is real, and that frequency is being emitted constantly, no matter how many times you say the opposite. It's not what you declare that determines your financial state, but the inner image you've attached to the concept of money that silently drives your choices, behaviors, and outcomes. Try this exercise. Pause for a few seconds, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and once you've settled, imagine yourself opening your bank account. Inside, there's a large sum, enough to ensure you won't have to worry about anything for the next few years. Let that image become vivid. Don't force yourself to be happy or positive. Just observe. When you see that amount, what do you feel? Is it truly relief, or is there a quiet wave of tension rising? Do you feel anxious about how to keep it? Do you feel undeserving? The emotion that surfaces in that moment is your frequency map. It doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to be honest. And only when you can identify the real feeling can you begin the process of reprogramming. Many people carry distorted inner images of money, but they never stop to observe. They think they're chasing wealth, but deep down they're afraid of being judged, afraid of losing, afraid of change. And so they keep spinning in the loop of work, earn, worry, spend, then work again. Not because they lack skill, but because their inner image is broadcasting the wrong frequency. Money, like any symbol in the mind, is linked to a chain of emotions accumulated from the past. Moments of rejection due to lack of resources, family arguments over finances, fearful teachings like, don't waste money, rich people are greedy, money isn't everything, but without it, life is suffering. Each of those memories etched a layer of vibration, and when combined, they form a hidden image. You might think you've forgotten, but your subconscious hasn't. And it's the real operating system behind every financial decision you make. Now try visualizing again, but this time, instead of looking at numbers, imagine yourself sitting in a beautiful room, light streaming through the windows, and in front of you is a stack of cash. No one around, no cameras, no judgment, just you and the money. What feelings arise? Do you feel peace? Or do you want to push it away? Do you feel supported, or heavy, fearful, or guilty? Whatever surfaces in that moment, that is the frequency you are living in. And if you don't make peace with that inner image, every financial strategy on the outside is just a patch on something unstable. The beautiful truth is you can rewrite your inner image. You can sit down every day, breathe, and reimagine the moment of receiving money with a feeling of gratitude, ease, joy. No strain, not because you're manifesting the universe's law, but because you're creating a new neural pathway. Every time you visualize a positive image tied to money and feel the correct frequency, you're sending a new message into your nervous system. You're bending the old programming and allowing a new financial future to form at its root. Make this a regular habit, like brushing your teeth. Each morning or evening, just take 3 minutes. Close your eyes, breathe, visualize a money scene, but this time you are in control. You're receiving it gently. You're using it for meaningful goals. You know how to preserve, multiply, and share it. Let that image embed deeply, and you'll notice after a few weeks, your behavior will start adjusting on its own. You'll no longer spend out of fear. You'll start investing instead of merely saving. You'll begin to notice financial opportunities in places you once overlooked, because you're changing from the inside out. People who live in financial alignment aren't necessarily the most ambitious. They're the most at peace when thinking about money, not because they're richer than you, but because they've healed their inner image, and you can do the same. Not by waiting until your account is full, but precisely because you dare to start before it is. You are the one who redefines your relationship with money, no longer as something external to control, but as an energetic field you can align with through every image, every emotion, every reaction you choose daily. And when you master your inner image, you'll no longer beg for wealth. You'll radiate resonance. You'll live as someone who is already full. And the world will have no choice but to reflect that back to you through opportunities, financial flows, and support you once thought were just luck. But there is no such thing as luck, only frequency, and you are the one who decides which frequency you will live with. Every time you say, I don't have money, you think you're describing a fact, but you're not. You're issuing a clear and powerful command, not to anyone else, but to the universe, to your subconscious, to your entire nervous system that's listening in. It's not a statement, it's an instruction. And the terrifying truth is the universe doesn't analyze right or wrong, it doesn't reason, it doesn't feel pity, it does only one thing. It responds to the frequency you emit. I don't have money is a label you stick on yourself. And when you repeat it, you're locking yourself into an identity. You act like someone who doesn't have money. You make decisions like someone who doesn't have money. You reject opportunities like someone who doesn't have money. More importantly, you emit a vibration that matches lack. That wave echoes each day, repeating in your unconscious. You don't even have to say it out loud. Just thinking, probably not enough. Now's not the time to take risks. I don't have money for that. You've already reactivated the poverty program, and you are the one giving the order for lack to continue existing. A person living on the frequency of scarcity isn't always someone who lacks money. Sometimes they have assets, they have jobs, they own homes. But they still live in a state of not enough. Every decision carries a trace of defensiveness. Every action feels heavy. And the dangerous part is they think they're just being realistic. But reality is merely the shadow of belief. And belief is created by the very language you use every day. The seemingly harmless phrase, "I don't have money," is like a password. When you use it, your brain shuts down to all possibilities. Your nervous system switches to survival mode. Creativity switches off. And all you can see are the things that validate what you just said. Unpaid bills, low balances, people doing better than you. You no longer see opportunities, not because they don't exist, but because you've ordered yourself not to see them. And the universe, loyal like a servant that never questions, quietly fulfills the exact order you confirmed. Language doesn't just describe, language designs. Every word you use is a blueprint for your future experience. And those who understand this never allow themselves to repeat phrases like, "I don't have enough," "I'm poor," "I don't have money." Not because they're trying to fool themselves, but because they know every word is a signal. They don't say, "I don't have money." They say, "I'm learning to manage my finances better." They don't say, "I'm not capable." They say, "I'm expanding my capacity." They don't pretend to be rich. They choose to live in alignment with the energy that truly wealthy people radiate: gratitude, readiness, and non-judgment of themselves. Try replacing the familiar phrase, "I don't have money," with, "How can I create this with what I have?" Immediately, your brain begins to open. This question activates creativity, allowing you to see resources, skills, networks you had forgotten. And when you maintain that language daily, you're not just changing words, you're rebuilding your belief system. Belief isn't built by logic, but by repeated experience, and language is where that experience begins. You might think, "I'm just saying it casually, what harm can it do?" But think back, how many times have you said something and your mood changed afterward? How many times have you said, "I'm useless," and that heavy feeling spread through your body? Language is electricity. It's a command. It's a neurological reflex. And if you don't master your words, you're letting them unconsciously program your life. Truly wealthy people are extremely cautious with their words, not because they're superstitious, but because they understand what you say with fluency becomes what you experience with frequency. And if you want wealth, you must stop speaking like someone who lacks. Stop using phrases like "just trying to get by," "too expensive to even think about," "I have no chance at that." Each sentence like that is a brick, and you're building the invisible prison that keeps money from coming near you. With your own voice, from now on, begin to wake up to every sentence you speak. Every time you're about to say, "I don't have money," pause, breathe, and ask, "What is this sentence teaching my brain?" If it's reinforcing limitation, choose a new way to speak. You have the right to start over from within, and you don't need to be rich to start talking like someone who is. You start talking like someone who is wealthy, and only then can you begin to live that wealth. Money doesn't come to the deserving. Money comes to those who emit the right signal, and that signal starts with the seemingly small phrases you use every day. You can't ask the universe to send you opportunity while constantly broadcasting orders of scarcity. You can't open the doors to abundance while using language that slams them shut. Let every word you speak become a passcode so that money, opportunity, and support can find the exact frequency you're choosing to live in. And you will see the world is not rejecting you. It's simply listening to every word. Every time you say, "I don't have money," you think you're describing a fact. But you're not. You're issuing a clear and powerful command, not to anyone else, but to the universe, to your subconscious, to your entire nervous system that's listening in. It's not a statement. It's an instruction. And the terrifying truth is the universe doesn't analyze right or wrong. It doesn't reason. It doesn't feel pity. It does only one thing. It responds to the frequency you emit. I don't have money is a label you stick on yourself, and when you repeat it, you're locking yourself into an identity. You act like someone who doesn't have money. You make decisions like someone who doesn't have money. You reject opportunities like someone who doesn't have money. More importantly, you emit a vibration that matches lack. That wave echoes each day, repeating in your unconscious. You don't even have to say it out loud. Just thinking, probably not enough. Now's not the time to take risks. I don't have money for that. You've already reactivated the poverty program, and you are the one giving the order for lack to continue existing. A person living on the frequency of scarcity isn't always someone who lacks money. Sometimes they have assets, they have jobs, they own homes, but they still live in a state of not enough. Every decision carries a trace of defensiveness. Every action feels heavy. And the dangerous part is they think they're just being realistic, but reality is merely the shadow of belief. And belief is created by the language you use every day. The seemingly harmless phrase, "I don't have money," is like a password. When you use it, your brain shuts down to all possibilities. Your nervous system switches to survival mode. Creativity switches off. And all you can see are the things that validate what you just said. Unpaid bills, low balances, people doing better than you. You no longer see opportunities, not because they don't exist, but because you've ordered yourself not to see them. And the universe, loyal, like a servant that never questions, quietly fulfills the exact order you confirmed. Language doesn't just describe, language designs. Every word you use is a blueprint for your future experience. And those who understand this never allow themselves to repeat phrases like, "I don't have enough," "I'm poor," "I don't have money," not because they're trying to fool themselves, but because they know every word is a signal. They don't say, "I don't have money." They say, "I'm learning to manage my finances better." They don't say, "I'm not capable." They say, "I'm expanding my capacity." They don't pretend to be rich. They choose to live in alignment with the energy that truly wealthy people radiate: gratitude, readiness, and non-judgment of themselves. Try replacing the familiar phrase, "I don't have money," with, "How can I create this with what I have?" Immediately, your brain begins to open. This question activates creativity, allowing you to see resources, skills, networks you had forgotten. And when you maintain that language daily, you're not just changing words, you're rebuilding your belief system. Belief isn't built by logic, but by repeated experience. And language is where that experience begins. You might think, I'm just saying it casually, what harm can it do? But think back. How many times have you said something and your mood changed afterward? How many times have you said, "I'm useless," and that heavy feeling spread through your body? Language is electricity. It's a command. It's a neurological reflex. And if you don't master your words, you're letting them unconsciously program your life. Truly wealthy people are extremely cautious with their words, not because they're superstitious, but because they understand. What you say with fluency becomes what you experience with frequency. And if you want wealth, you must stop speaking like someone who lacks. Stop using phrases like "just trying to get by," "too expensive to even think about," "I have no chance at that." Each sentence like that is a brick, and you're building the invisible prison that keeps money from coming near you with your own voice. From now on, begin to wake up to every sentence you speak. Every time you're about to say, "I don't have money," pause, breathe, and ask, "What is this sentence teaching my brain?" If it's reinforcing limitation, choose a new way to speak. You have the right to start over from within. And you don't need to be rich to start talking like someone who is. You start talking like someone who is wealthy. And only then can you begin to live that wealth. Money doesn't come to the deserving. Money comes to those who emit the right signal. And that signal starts with the seemingly small phrases you use every day. You can't ask the universe to send you opportunity while constantly broadcasting orders of scarcity. You can't open the doors to abundance while using language that slams them shut. Let every word you speak become a passcode so that money, opportunity, and support can find the exact frequency you're choosing to live in. And you will see the world is not rejecting you. It's simply listening to every word. No one is born pre-programmed for success. No one is born already vibrating at the frequency of abundance. Everything is planted. The question is, which programming are you currently living by? And do you realize that you, not your circumstances or your past, hold the power to rewrite your entire belief system? Each of us is the sum of mental code lines written since childhood. Phrases from parents like, "Don't waste money, that's too expensive." "We don't have enough, honey." Experiences of financial failure when borrowing money, making bad investments, being scammed, or being judged for desiring wealth. All of these inputs become hidden connections, silently constructing the belief map about money in your subconscious. And that very map governs every financial decision you make, not through logic, but through biological reflex. If you want to change your destiny, you must change the map. If you want to change the map, you have to rewrite the code. And to rewrite the code, you need to do three things. 1, identify how the old code is operating. 2, interrupt the unconscious reflex loop the moment it arises. 3, reinstall new signals. Clear, consistent, and repeated. Long enough to form a new belief system. Begin with observation. Each time you're about to make a financial decision, buying something, investing, learning a new skill, helping others, pause and listen to the first sentence that pops into your head. It could be, "It's probably not worth it." "What if I lose everything? I'm not good enough to teach others," or simply "maybe later." These aren't logical thoughts. They are subconscious scripts replaying the old story. And if you don't identify them, you'll keep living the same life, just in new clothes, a different age, a different job, but with the same operating system that's never been updated. Interrupting the reflex is the second step. This doesn't mean you need to muster iron willpower to fight your fear. You just need to pause and ask, "Why do I believe this?" And you've already reclaimed control. Don't rush to suppress the emotion. Look at it directly. If you're afraid of lack, of failure, of being judged, acknowledge it. Emotion is not the enemy. It's a signal. And if you're brave enough not to react immediately, you'll realize that underneath that anxiety is just an old belief program trying to survive. The final step, and the most important one, is reinstallation. You must plant a new belief, not by shouting affirmations or hypnotizing yourself, but by creating a deep emotional experience, repeated daily, until your nervous system begins to accept it as your new reality. Not through words alone, but through imagery, presence, and sensations that soak into your cells. One of the most effective methods is emotionally charged creative visualization. Each day, spend 10 minutes closing your eyes and imagining yourself living the financial version you desire. Sitting in a peaceful, elegant space, confidently mapping out your investment plan, helping others with generosity rather than calculation, walking with the grace of someone who has nothing to prove but plenty to give. And the most important element in this visualization is not the material details, but the feelings you experience. The feeling of peace, the feeling of confidence, the feeling of gratitude. That emotional vibration is the true frequency, and that is the signal you need to replant. Alongside visualization, use intentional language not to impress, but to reprogram. Rewrite the phrases you regularly say to yourself. Don't say, "I'm not good at managing money." Say, "I'm learning how to make money serve my vision." Don't say, "I'm not ready for that." Say, "I'm becoming the person who can." Language is software, and if you don't intentionally update it daily, the old system will always restart, pulling you back to the same old results. Repetition is the key. You don't need to do everything perfectly at once. You just need to do one thing long enough, deep enough, and with enough awareness. Rewrite your affirmations every morning. Visualize your abundant version every night. Observe your financial reactions whenever a decision arises. Then reframe it with a new mindset. At first, it will feel like learning to walk with unfamiliar legs, but then you'll notice, little by little, you start reacting differently. You choose to invest where you once hesitated. You remain calm when others panic. You see opportunity where you once only saw risk. That is the sign that reprogramming has worked. You're no longer living by the reflexes of your past. You're living by a new intention, and that shifts not just your finances, but your identity. You don't need to destroy the old self. You just need to stop living by the old code. And you do that not by fighting poverty, but by building inner abundance. When the inside is strong enough, the outside naturally recalibrates. When the new operating system is deep enough, your behavior will change on its own. And when you emit a new frequency, the world has no choice but to realign with you. Reprogramming is a quiet journey. It doesn't need to be seen. But you will feel it clearly, precisely, when you begin to live not from fear, but from a belief that you yourself have planted. And that's when you stop begging for change. You become the source that creates it. Money is not attracted to action. Money is attracted to frequency. And frequency comes from identity. This world doesn't pay the hardest worker. It pays the one who vibrates at the right frequency. The person whose inner energy is fully aligned with the value they represent. In other words, money doesn't come because you work tirelessly. It comes because you have become an irreplaceable version of the value stream the world needs. The problem is that most people only focus on doing. They chase methods, techniques, processes step by step, forgetting that it is the person behind the action who determines the true power of that action. Two people can do the same task, learn the same skill, invest the same amount, but the outcomes will be completely different if one operates from fear of losing money, while the other acts from the identity of someone who constantly creates value. It's not what you do that creates wealth. It's who you are when you do it. You can learn to write, speak, run a business, negotiate, but if you're still operating from an identity of I have to work hard to be accepted, then everything you do will emit a signal of I need recognition, and the world will reflect that back. You'll have to run endlessly, constantly proving your worth, your competence, and still feel like it's not enough. On the other hand, if your identity is I am value, you don't need to strain. Just your presence alone radiates a kind of steadiness, a quiet confidence that makes others trust you even before you say a word. The difference lies in who you are, not what you do. If deep down your identity is still that of someone who needs to survive, to fight, to compete, then money will always stay ahead of you, hard to catch, always just out of reach, constantly testing you. But if your inner identity is that of a creator, someone who generates value, who never lacks but always knows how to create more, then money will come as a natural consequence. It seeks you out, not because you beg for it, but because you are ready to hold it. Look back at your past. The times you earned the most, it wasn't when you worked the hardest, it was when you were the most whole. Maybe it was the moment you stopped caring about recognition and simply focused on delivering true value. Maybe it was when you weren't trying to sell, but genuinely helping a customer solve their problem with depth and sincerity. Or perhaps it was when you stopped chasing achievements and started living in alignment with your highest qualities. And it was precisely in those moments that money arrived faster, more abundantly, more effortlessly, because your actions came from a truly magnetic place within. Don't get this wrong. Action still matters, but action without the right identity only leads to depletion. The more you do, the more you burn out, because you're using willpower to fill the void of belief. Whereas if you act from the right identity, you don't lose energy, you gain it. Because every step you take, every word you speak, every decision you make emits the same frequency. I am valuable. I live in alignment with that. And money is a byproduct, not the goal. The issue most people face is that they try to change the result through behavior without ever pausing to upgrade the person behind that behavior. They switch careers, switch partners, switch environments, but never switch themselves. And so they repeat the exact same cycle, just in a different context. That's why lottery winners still go bankrupt. But those who've built a wealthy identity can rebuild from nothing, because money doesn't attach to circumstances, it attaches to identity. So how do you change your identity? Start by asking a better question. Who am I being when I do this? Every time you write an email, make a call, walk into a meeting, pause and ask yourself, am I acting like someone who is desperate to be chosen, or like someone who has already chosen themselves? And if the answer isn't right yet, adjust. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to notice, then return to the identity you want to build, and that shift in awareness already changes your frequency. Next, reinforce that identity with aligned behavior every day, little by little. A person with a wealthy identity doesn't need to appear busy, they need to be precise. They don't need many clients, they need the right clients. They don't need to shout about success, they quietly produce results that the world cannot ignore. And it all starts with them knowing exactly who they are, not in the eyes of others, but in every silent decision made throughout the day. You can start today. You don't have to change your entire career, you just need to change your answer to one question. Who am I when I do this? And let that answer guide how you show up, how you think, how you speak, how you keep your word, how you decide, how you talk to yourself in silence. Each of those small details will resonate into a new identity. And that identity is the magnet. No manipulation needed, no strategy required. Just you living as a version deep enough, strong enough, and true enough. And money will find its way to you, because the world doesn't pay you for the job you do, it pays you for the person you are when you do that job. And when you truly become a source of irreplaceable value, you won't have to chase money anymore. Money will choose to stay, because it recognizes that the frequency you emit is where it belongs. Two men born into a poor family on the outskirts of Detroit. They are twin brothers, identical in face, height, even voice. They grew up under the same roof, heard the same teachings from their parents, went through the same childhood hardships. Parents arguing over unpaid bills, skipping meals to give food to younger siblings, spending summer months washing cars to help support the family. It seemed that fate had written the same script for both. But 30 years later, they live in two completely different worlds. The older brother, named Richard, is a CEO of a tech corporation, owns his own company with over 120 employees. He lives in a quiet lakeside house, spending weekends reading, playing music, or offering free mentoring to aspiring entrepreneurs. The wealth he has built didn't come from a lucky break, but from 2 decades of persistently following a philosophy, living true to core values, acting consistently with a prosperous mindset, and continuously reinvesting in himself. The younger brother, named Robert, is a temporary warehouse worker living in a cheap rental apartment in a working-class neighborhood. He changes jobs almost every year due to conflicts with his boss, lack of living expenses, or feeling unmotivated. He has only a few dollars left in his wallet. Every time he gets paid, he immediately spends most of it on things he believes are rewards for surviving tough days. In his mind, familiar phrases constantly echo, "I'm not good at making money. Rich people are all dishonest. Money is hard to come by for someone like me." What's striking is that both Richard and Robert went to the same school. They had the same starting point, the same genes, the same external conditions. But one day, when they were both 21 years old, a conversation changed the course of their lives. That day, Richard was sitting in the library reading Think and Grow Rich. He stopped at one sentence, "Wealth begins with thought, not action." He asked himself, if I don't change the way I think, then no matter how many skills I learn, nothing will truly change? That night he wrote a declaration, "I will not earn money to escape poverty. I will become the kind of person money seeks because I am a true source of value. From that moment, he began radically transforming the way he thought about himself. He no longer worked just to make money, but to affirm the identity of someone who no longer lives by the programming of lack. Meanwhile, Robert went home, turned on the TV, and laughed out loud at some comedy show. He thought, this life is good enough. Thinking too much just makes your head hurt. Every time he heard Richard talk about investing in mindset, Robert brushed it off. You keep dreaming. I have to deal with reality. He believed he was being real, but the real he clung to was the result of an old belief that he couldn't change anything big and that money belonged to others, not to him. Many people think money comes from luck, from opportunities, from connections. But in truth, it all starts with a definition you silently assign to yourself, which you never stop to re-examine. If you believe that you are someone who just gets by, then every action, every decision, every choice you make will be governed by that identity. You will unconsciously choose jobs that are just enough, avoid risk, and reject invitations that require you to grow. On the other hand, if you believe you are someone who creates prosperity, you will behave very differently, even when you have no money in your pocket. Richard wasn't more intelligent than Robert. What he had was this: he created a new identity and lived fully with it every single day. When he had no money, he learned to feel his inner worth. When no one recognized him, he validated himself through acts of integrity. When he failed, he didn't change direction, he changed the question. What would someone with a prosperous identity do right now? And over time, the world began to treat him differently, not because of luck, but because he had become someone irreplaceable. And Robert, he still believed that if only he could catch a big opportunity, his life would change. But every time an opportunity came, he backed away. He said, I'm not ready. Not because he lacked ability, but because the identity inside him didn't allow him to believe he was worthy. He didn't know that opportunities don't come to test your skills. They come to test whether you dare to live true to a new version of yourself. The story of these twin brothers is not rare. It's the story of millions. People who started from the same place, the same environment, but ended up living in completely different financial realities. Not because of fate, but because of a different choice, a different belief, a different identity, and the commitment to live by it regardless of circumstances. If today you're feeling lost, feeling like money is something out of reach, pause and ask yourself, who am I living as? And if the answer doesn't make you proud, don't rush to change your job, don't hurry to shift your strategy, change your identity. Then act from that identity, because in the end, you don't live according to what you want, you live according to what you believe. And only when you dare to believe that you are someone money naturally gravitates toward, will you begin to create a current the world cannot resist. You are not lacking money. You are being controlled by subconscious patterns you don't even recognize. They're not loud. They don't announce themselves. They don't ask permission. But they are the hidden architecture behind every financial decision you make. How you spend money, hold on to it, reject opportunities, or sabotage progress the moment you start to have a little extra. And the most dangerous part? You think it's just your personality, when in truth, these are programmed responses from the past, running automatically in the dark. Pattern 1, money is risk. If in the past you witnessed your family fall into debt, experienced unstable jobs, or suffered investment losses, you may associate money with danger. Every time you think about large sums of money, you don't feel excited, you feel anxious. Not because you don't want money, but because deep in your subconscious, money's tied to instability. So every time a chance to increase your income shows up, you hesitate. Every time you hold a large amount in your hands, you spend it quickly. Not because you're careless, but because your mind is trying to return to the safe zone it knows, where there's less money, but no fear of losing it. Pattern 2, I don't deserve abundance. This is one of the most common and dangerous patterns. It's often implanted when you're very young, maybe from simple phrases like, "Don't be greedy," "We're poor but honest," or "Rich people are all selfish." Over time, you learn to believe that living simply, accepting less, is a kind of moral virtue. You don't realize that you're choking your own potential. When someone offers you a high salary, you feel awkward. When paid what you're truly worth, you feel uncomfortable. When you receive something good, you feel like something's off. So you end up rejecting it, destroying it, or ruining every chance at prosperity, because deep inside you believe you don't deserve it. Pattern 3, to get rich, you must do something unethical. If your subconscious associates money with images of deceit, greed, or corruption, then every time you start to succeed, you'll feel guilty. You begin to doubt yourself. Am I becoming like those people I used to hate? Is this money clean? Do others think I've changed because of money? So you unconsciously limit your own growth. You slow yourself down. You lower your standards. You adjust your results to be just enough so that you don't feel like you're stepping beyond the image of a good person you've clung to for so long. But the problem isn't you. The problem is you're using a faulty definition of money and locking yourself inside an outdated moral cage no one asked you to keep. Pattern 4, the more I try, the more I lose. This pattern originates from early failures. Maybe you once tried your hardest to win a scholarship and got rejected. Maybe you poured your heart into a project and were betrayed. Maybe you loved sincerely and got hurt. And from that, your mind drew a flawed conclusion. The more I hope, the more I get disappointed. The more I try, the more it hurts. This pattern makes you emotionally cold toward your own dreams. You say things like, "I'm just being realistic. Money isn't everything. I don't need to be rich. Just enough is fine." But the truth is, you used to want more. You used to believe in more. Now, you're just building an invisible wall to avoid being hurt again. All of these patterns share one thing in common. They run in the background. You don't need to summon them. You just need to stay quiet, and they'll keep operating. Every day, every decision, every time you consider investing, changing careers, or stepping out of your comfort zone, they'll pull you back with the invisible gravity of your past. And if you don't stop to reprogram them, even if you change companies, industries, or partners, you'll keep living the same way, just in a new setting. If you want to change your finances, you can't just change behavior. You have to go back to the operating system, where the subconscious gives the orders and behavior simply obeys. Every time you find yourself hesitating, doubting, or ruining opportunities as they arrive, don't blame yourself. Observe the pattern that's guiding you, and then rewrite the definition. From "money is dangerous" to "money is a reflection of the value I create." From "I don't deserve" to "I'm learning to become more deserving each day." From "wealth is deceitful" to "prosperity is the result of disciplined integrity." From "trying leads to pain" to "contributing is how I live true to my highest potential." Your subconscious is not your enemy, it's your protector. It once helped you survive, but now you don't need to survive anymore. You need to thrive, and that only happens when you're no longer controlled by old patterns, but begin to reprogram yourself to become someone who can hold abundance with ease and grace. Because in the end, your finances are not the result of the job you do. They are the result of the beliefs you're no longer aware of, but that are shaping everything. It's not that you lack willpower. It's not that you don't have a plan. The problem lies in this. You are living according to an automatic system, and you don't even know when you programmed it. And that system is your subconscious. The subconscious is the deepest part of your mind. It doesn't need you to think. It just needs you to repeat. It doesn't reason. It just records, and then it replays. According to research by neuroscientists like Dr. Bruce Lipton and Benjamin Libet, up to 95% of your daily behavior is the product of the subconscious, not conscious choice. You don't really choose to wake up late, to scroll endlessly, to spend money unconsciously, to procrastinate, or to react negatively. These are all reflexes, repeated so often they've become default pathways, like lines of code in a processor. You don't see them, but they're running the whole system. The question is, where did you program that code? Since you were little. Before the age of 7, your brain mainly operated at theta frequency, a state that passively absorbs information without judgment. What you heard your parents say, what you saw them do, the emotions you witnessed around money, value, failure, success, all of it went straight into your subconscious without passing through any cognitive filter. You didn't choose them, they were implanted. And from there, they began to form the foundational truths you've acted on ever since. As you grow older, you believe you're mature because you know how to reason. But in reality, you're simply justifying behaviors that your subconscious had already shaped. If your subconscious believes money is stressful, you will unconsciously avoid high-income situations, even if you say you want to be wealthy. If your subconscious believes, I'm not good at communication, you'll act awkwardly in every negotiation. No matter how much you've trained, if your subconscious believes, I have to work twice as hard to be accepted, you'll always overexert yourself and burn out, only to return to the same spot again. The most frightening thing about the subconscious is its loyalty. It doesn't judge right or wrong. It only protects you in the way it thinks is best based on what you've repeated long enough. If you once failed while expressing yourself, the subconscious will help you stay quiet. If you were rejected for dreaming big, the subconscious will help you settle for less. It doesn't want you to get hurt again, but in doing so, it also keeps you from growing any further. And so you wake up each morning with 5% of conscious willpower to fight against 95% of programming. You write goals, you commit, you swear you'll change, but a few days later you find yourself reverting to old patterns, as if some invisible force is pulling you back. That's not because you're weak. It's because you're using your conscious mind to fight your operating system without knowing how to reprogram it. So, how do you overcome it? The first step is to observe without judgment. Each time you notice yourself reacting in a familiar way, instead of blaming yourself, ask, where is this reaction coming from? Who did I learn it from? How did it serve me in the past? And now do I still need it? Open-ended questions are the key to shining the light of consciousness into the shadows of your subconscious. The second step is to create new habits within the subconscious state. The most effective way is to repeat images, affirmations, and positive emotions while your brain is in theta waves, right after waking up in the morning or just before sleep. That's when the subconscious gateway is open. You don't just think, you feel what you want to become. You rewrite the program not with willpower, but with steady, subtle, consistent energy. The third step is to act from your new identity. The subconscious doesn't change through theory. It changes when you act consistently according to the new model, when you continuously act as a confident person, even if you're trembling at first. You're reinforcing new neural pathways. When you choose to invest in yourself instead of spending on distractions, you're giving your subconscious new proof of who I'm becoming. Change doesn't come in an instant. It comes when you courageously live differently, many times, even when your old self is struggling to pull you back. No one teaches you how to use your subconscious, but it is what's running your life. And until you step out of that default mode, you remain a product of your past. But once you face this mechanism, without avoidance, without blame, you can rewrite everything. No need to wait for luck. No need to change careers. All you need is to change how you operate at the deepest level of yourself. Because in the end, you don't live by what you know, you live by what you've programmed. And if you're sharp enough to realize 95% of each day is not destiny, it's outdated software running inside you, then you already hold the key to reprogram your entire financial, emotional, and personal future. No one is born with a default poverty code. You didn't come into this world thinking, I will live in lack, but over the years you were programmed. And the most frightening part isn't the circumstance itself. It's the moment you begin to believe that the circumstance reflects your true worth. That's when the poverty blueprint is fully installed. Silent, subtle, but rooted so deeply you mistake it for your nature. Decoding the poverty blueprint cannot begin by merely changing behavior, because behavior is the final outcome. The blueprint is the original design. If you're living below your potential, delaying opportunities, or draining energy from vague fears about money, it doesn't mean you're incapable. It simply means you're running an old pattern, triggered daily without your awareness. And the first 3 steps to dismantling that structure are observe, identify, reconstruct. Step 1, observe. Blueprints don't live in your conscious mind. They live in your reflexes. You don't think, I'll procrastinate because I fear failure. You just scroll on your phone instead of sending the presentation. You don't think, I'm not good enough to take this project. You just politely decline and call it knowing your limits. Observation is the step that brings you back into the role of operator, not victim. Ask yourself, each time I approach a new financial opportunity, how does my body react? Where do I feel tension? What excuses do I use to avoid it? And who did I learn this reaction from? Observation is not about blaming yourself. It's about separating yourself from the pattern. When you can see it as a program, not as who you are, you begin to reclaim the power of choice. Step 2, identify. After observation, you need to name it. Patterns aren't afraid of being seen, they're afraid of being named. Because once they're named, you can analyze them. And when you analyze them, you stop identifying with them. Examples? Do you always spend everything the moment money comes in? The pattern is money comes and goes. Do you regularly decline salary raises? The pattern is I don't deserve more. Do you feel uneasy around successful people? The pattern is wealth and kindness don't coexist. Do you avoid leadership roles? The pattern is standing out brings criticism. Each of these patterns didn't arise from logic. They arose from experience, maybe from an offhand comment by an adult when you were young, maybe from the time you were shamed for dreaming big, maybe from watching someone get hurt trying to change their life. The subconscious captured that moment, attached a negative emotion to it, and built an avoidance model. Identification helps you reconnect the chain from present to past. And when you realize that a pattern is not the truth, but merely a reaction formed in a moment of limited understanding, you begin to rewrite it. Step 3, reconstruct. This is not an overnight process. Reconstructing requires you to consciously reprogram yourself every single day. How? 1, new language. Start by speaking what you want to believe, even if you don't fully believe it yet. Shift from I'm not good with money to I'm learning to manage money wisely. From I'm not used to having a lot to I'm becoming someone who naturally holds abundance. Language is a gateway for energy to enter the subconscious, and daily repetition is how you embed new messages into the deeper layers. 2, smallest new behavior. You don't need to make grand moves, just do what you used to avoid. If you hesitated to send invoices, send one today. If you avoided checking your bank balance, open it and acknowledge it without judgment. Every new action is a signal to the subconscious. I am no longer the old version of me. Repeating these small behaviors creates a new axis around which your behavioral model rotates. 3, synchronized emotion. Patterns are not just recorded through action, but through the emotion attached to it. If you try to change while still feeling heavy inside, the subconscious will keep you in place. So in every new image you visualize, attach feelings of lightness, freedom, and worthiness. Smile when thinking about money flowing in. Breathe deeply when picturing your wealthy self, without shame, without self-blame. Emotion is the glue between image and nervous system. Decoding the poverty blueprint isn't about erasing the past. It's about revisiting it from a higher level of awareness. You're no longer the child who was rejected for asking for money. You're no longer the person who failed during their first business attempt. You are now someone mature enough to rewrite everything with mindful observation, accurate identification, and intentional reconstruction. And if you're patient with yourself, every day, you'll discover the poverty blueprint is not a sentence, it's a program. And every program can be rewritten if you're willing to look directly at it, name it, and live as though you've already become someone new. Money doesn't like being chased. It doesn't respond to pressure, fear, or pleading. It moves with energy. And the rich don't become wealthy because they chase money at all costs. They become rich because they know how to create space for money to arrive. They don't cling, they receive. And that act of receiving is the real skill no one talks about. Most people grow up inside a distorted framework. To have money, you must chase after it relentlessly. Chase the rich, chase opportunities, chase praise, chase ambition without knowing when to stop. But the more you chase, the farther you get, because deep down you're emitting a frequency of lack. And money doesn't stay where lack resides. It stays with an inner state that knows it's worthy of receiving. Observe someone who is truly wealthy. They're not rush in speech, not frantic in action. They don't beg for money. They give value, and they allow that value to return as a natural law. Because in their operating system, money is the result, not the goal. They know that if they are a strong enough source of value, money will come. And if it comes at the right time, in the right way, it will stay for a long time. In contrast, when you're in a chasing state, you lose clarity. You cheapen your time. You sacrifice personal boundaries. You lower your worth just to gain a few dollars up front. You say, I need money, without realizing that this very statement has locked you into the role of a beggar, not an attractor. And in that state, you're pushing money away, even if you think you're getting closer. So what does it mean to receive money? First, it means allowing yourself to be the one who holds money. Many dream of wealth, but their subconscious hasn't given permission. They fear jealousy, exploitation, slander, pressure. They believe wealth will bring negative consequences. So, unconsciously, they reject money before it even knocks. Receiving doesn't come from logic. It comes from a deep inner agreement that says, I am safe with money. I don't have to sacrifice dignity or lose myself to keep money around. The rich understand. Money merely amplifies essence. If you are good, money will make you kinder. If you live with purpose, money will make you more powerful in pursuing that purpose. Second, it means accepting what you deserve without guilt. Have you ever been paid generously for something and instantly felt uneasy? You lower your worth when someone calls your product expensive. You steer clients toward cheaper packages even when they're ready to pay more. That's not humility. That's rejecting reception, and the rich don't do that. They give generously, but they receive fully because they understand the universe requires fair circulation. You can't only inhale without exhaling, and you can't only give without receiving. Balanced reception is the sign of a healthy system. Third, it means neither worshiping money nor treating it as an enemy. The poor often fall into one of two extremes, either idolizing money to the point of losing themselves or hating it and calling it the root of all evil. Both are wrong. The rich see money like oxygen. Important, but not everything. They don't depend on it. But they also don't reject it. They let money serve their goals. without letting it control them. And because of that, money feels safe with them. It stays because it is respected but not deified. If you're living in a state where you must fight for every opportunity, every paycheck, every step forward, ask yourself, what frequency am I sending out? Is it lack? Is it fear? Is it self-doubt? If so, it's not your fault. It's a sign that you haven't yet learned how to receive. And no one ever taught you that in school, but you can begin again. Today, with 3 small actions. 1, declare clearly every morning, I am the one money seeks. I am the one money seeks. 2, observe your emotions when money comes in. If you feel fear, guilt, or unworthiness, sit down and write it out. That's a pattern that needs to be undone. 3, practice giving and receiving without guilt. When someone compliments you, don't downplay it. When someone gives you something, receive it with gratitude, not awkwardness. When you state your service price, say it with confidence, not hesitation. The rich are not luckier than you. They are just more refined in how they operate internally. They understand that money is energy, and energy flows to where it is welcomed, not where it is merely demanded. If you want to be rich, don't try to force money to chase you. Make yourself a worthy destination, so money finds you, stays with you, and multiplies. Because ultimately, wealth doesn't begin with an action. It begins with a state where you no longer chase money, but learn to receive it naturally. The space within you is the very first factor that determines whether money can enter your life or not. Don't think about your bank account yet. Don't think about the amount of money you need. Think about the space you've prepared, or haven't. Because one simple truth often overlooked is this: money cannot enter a place already crammed with old energy, limiting beliefs, negative emotions, and worn-out behaviors. The prosperity space is not an empty void. It is an intentional state created to invite money, opportunities, and value into your life. The rich don't try to fill every moment with work. They know how to create room. And it is from that room that new ideas arrive. New relationships are born. Unexpected income flows in. The universe doesn't operate like a marketplace where you scream to get someone's attention. It works like a field. You have to till the soil, clear the weeds, and only then can good seeds be planted. So, what is the prosperity space? First, it is space in your mind. A mind occupied by worry, judgment, and money obsessions cannot receive the subtle signals of opportunity. You cannot perceive chances when your mind is programmed with thoughts like, I can't, this probably isn't for me, money is out of reach. Observe what you think when you wake up each morning. Is it a stream of abundant beliefs or a list of invisible fears? Sweep out that mental dust every day. Meditate in silence for 10 minutes. Write down 3 things you are open to receiving today. Create a mental space where your intuition has a chance to speak. Second, it is space in your emotions. Many people carry unhealed wounds, rejection from the past, being used for money, getting hurt from a failed investment. These experiences accumulate into suppressed emotions. And you cannot receive a new flow of abundance if your emotions are in turmoil. Remember, money isn't just numbers, it carries energy, and it feels whether you are emotionally stable enough to hold on to it. Practice forgiveness, not to bring peace to others, but to reclaim your own inner space. Each negative emotion you release is 1 square meter of soil you clear so money can step in. Third, it is space in your schedule and behaviors. Don't cram every hour of your day with fake busyness. Money doesn't come to the busiest person. It comes to the one who can recognize the right moment. And you cannot recognize if your mind is always in a race. The rich know how to create white space in their schedules, not just to rest, but to observe. A morning without meetings to read 1 page of a book might give rise to $1 million mindset. An afternoon without taking on another project might open up a life-changing connection. Cross off 1 familiar but meaningless task each day. That's how you create a clean hallway for wealth to enter. Fourth, it is space in your physical environment. Are you living in a space full of old items, messy papers, unused belongings? That's a signal to your subconscious that you're holding on to the past and there's no room for the new. The rich don't need to live in extreme minimalism, but they understand that every object holds energy. And if your environment contains too many things that don't serve your future goals, you're being anchored by the past. Start with a drawer, a corner of your desk, a tiny section in your wallet. Each time you clean, you are making a declaration to the universe. I am ready to receive more. Creating space does not make you poorer. It makes you more streamlined to attract what is right. Just like a glass must have empty space for water to be poured in, your life needs white space for good things to happen. The best financial masters always set aside time for doing nothing, not to procrastinate, but to reconnect with something more important than action, the inner state of readiness. And you can practice this every day. Each morning before turning on your phone, spend 5 minutes clearing mental clutter. Write down the negative thoughts haunting you and burn them. Take a conscious break from thought. Each week, choose one item that no longer represents the person you want to become and let it go. Each month, dedicate one day to doing nothing and simply observe. Which habits are blocking your flow? Who is occupying space in your life, but not helping you get closer to your wealthier self? Money doesn't come to the person willing to do everything. It comes to the one who's willing to clear the way first. And the space you create today, it's not just for money to step in. It's for you to step out of your old role, out of the scarcity pattern, and into the life of someone ready to receive abundance. Every thought you think doesn't just exist in your mind. It emits waves. It leaves an electromagnetic imprint in your energy field. And if you know how to use meditation correctly, not as a momentary relaxation technique, but as a tool for intentional brainwave programming, you'll discover something strange. You begin to attract money without having to chase it. Most people meditate without knowing what they're doing. They close their eyes, try not to think, and then blame themselves for not finding peace. But those who understand the laws of abundance don't meditate to relieve stress. They meditate to synchronize themselves with the frequency money vibrates on. They know that if they change their brain waves, they'll change their magnetic field. And if they change their magnetic field, they'll attract completely different outcomes than before. So how can meditation not only bring you peace, but also bring you wealth? Step 1, choose the right brainwave frequency. In the beta state, where you work, feel, stress, and constantly think, your brain operates at a frequency of 1430 hertz. This is where logic is processed, but it's not where financial attraction happens. To broadcast a prosperous signal, you need to lower your state to alpha waves or theta waves, or 440 hertz. This is where intuition is activated, the subconscious becomes programmable, and alignment with the flow of the universe begins. You enter the realm of creativity. And there, money is no longer something external. It becomes a reflection of the energy you're radiating. Step 2, visualize. But not just with images. Many people hear about visualization, picturing what they want, and assume that simply imagining the car, the house, or a bank account full of money is enough. Wrong. The universe doesn't respond to images. It responds to the actual inner state you feel when imagining those things. If you visualize having 10 billion, but inside you feel doubt, fear, or like you're faking it, that's the signal you're sending out. And that's what you'll get back, more lack. Instead, visualize in the theta state and amplify the emotion of already having it as much as possible. You don't need to see every detail clearly. Just feel as if it's already real. Feel the trust, the fulfillment, the freedom. At that point, you're not imagining, you're commanding your magnetic field. Step 3, send positive commands to the subconscious. In the first 15 minutes after entering a deep meditative state, the subconscious opens like a door. This is the time to plant the right affirmations, like installing software into an operating system. Don't say, "I will be rich." That puts you in the future and keeps your present self in lack. Say, "I am living in abundance. I attract money naturally. Money loves my presence." And these affirmations are not just words. They are energy codes you are embedding into the information field around you. And when you repeat them enough times, they become the new default in your unconscious operating system. Step 4, connect the body. Don't think meditation is only about the mind. If your body is tense, contracted, anxious, then the signal you're sending out is still danger, not safe, not ready. Use deep breathing. Bring awareness to each part of your body and release the tension. When you feel safe within yourself, you're creating the ideal environment for money to come. Money doesn't flow to the tense. It flows to those who have become a safe space for prosperous energy to reside. Step 5, practice regularly, like a millionaire ritual. Don't meditate when you have time. Meditate like you brush your teeth. A non-negotiable ritual. The wealthy know that the external world is just a reflection of the inner state. They prioritize their inner space just as they prioritize financial investment, because they understand if you don't set the right magnetic field, every external action becomes a form of resistance. You don't need to meditate for 2 hours a day. Just 15-20 minutes each morning when you're still drifting between dream and reality, or before sleep, when the boundary between conscious and subconscious becomes blurred. These are golden moments. Use them to completely shift the energy you emit into the world. Remember, you are not compensated based on effort. You are compensated based on frequency. And frequency isn't found in words or outer actions. It lives in your biology, emotions, and inner vibration that you maintain daily. Meditation is a way for you to tune yourself to the exact frequency where wealth is already waiting. And once you access that state, you no longer need to wait for money to come. It will come. Because from that moment on, you are no longer someone searching for wealth. You are the living embodiment of prosperity. You don't need to ask others what they think of your worth. Just look at your current income. The amount of money you're attracting is the clearest reflection of how you value yourself, not through your words, but through the unconscious signals you emit each day. Money doesn't judge you. It simply reflects the inner judgment you hold about yourself. If you believe you only deserve a fixed amount each month, that becomes the limit money will obey. If you believe you must work extremely hard and suffer to earn your reward, money will come according to that very struggle-based model. It doesn't choose you just because you're kind, diligent, or ethical. It chooses you when you have enough confidence to broadcast an undeniable message. I am someone who deserves to be richly rewarded. You cannot attract an abundant life if, deep down, you still carry feelings of unworthiness. A person who constantly says, "I just need enough to get by," "I'm not good with numbers," or "I don't need much," isn't being humble. They are programming their subconscious to believe they are not worthy of having more, and money hears those silent commands loud and clear. You don't need to shout, you just need to feel strongly, and money will respond as the most honest mirror. Try looking back at your financial decisions in the past. Did you ever turn down an opportunity because you thought, "I'm not ready yet"? Did you ever accept a lower offer because you were afraid to negotiate? Did you ever do more work than others but hesitate to ask for fair compensation? None of that was because of the market. It was because of the image you held of your own worth in your mind. To change your financial results, you don't need to acquire new skills first. You need to update your inner image. You need to stand before a mirror each day, not the one on your wall, but the financial mirror in your life, and ask, what does my current income say about what I believe I'm worth? The answer may shock you, but it is the beginning of true freedom. Wealthy people don't just work more efficiently, they believe their time has value, their presence has value, their ideas have value. And because of that belief, they emit a magnetic field that makes others willing to pay more. They don't need to act important, because in their minds, importance is already a default setting. If you want to raise your financial level, start by elevating how you speak about yourself, how you see yourself, how you treat yourself. Don't bargain with yourself every morning. Don't automatically choose the cheapest option just because you think you don't deserve higher quality. Start with small choices. Select a better item. Hold a more confident posture. Walk into a room with the awareness that I bring value wherever I go. And more importantly, don't wait until you have money to start feeling valuable. Live as someone of value now, and money will come as an inevitable result. This isn't pretending. This is reprogramming from within, shifting from someone who seeks validation to someone who knows exactly who they are. If you've ever seen someone earning 10 times more than you, don't be envious. Ask yourself, what inside them makes them believe they deserve that level? And then answer, I can learn that. I can choose to see myself differently. Money doesn't come to make you happy. It comes to reflect the invisible valuation you've assigned to yourself. And if you dare to raise that valuation, not because you're perfect, but because you're committed to living in alignment with your true value, then the flow of money will shift, not because you try harder, but because you've stopped denying your true worth. You can start today. No need to wait for approval, no need to increase your income right away. Just begin by examining every transaction, every comment you make about money, every thought you have when you look into your wallet, and ask, how much am I showing the universe that I'm worth? The mirror never lies, and fortunately, you always have the power to change the image in the mirror. Starting from within, you don't need to change your whole life overnight, but if you dare to change the frequency of energy you emit intentionally for 7 consecutive days, you'll begin to witness things that seem random, an unexpected opportunity, an invitation from somewhere you never imagined, a coincidence that defies conventional logic. It's not because the outside world has changed, but because your internal financial field has started broadcasting on a new frequency, and the world is simply responding to a signal you had never sent before. On the first day, you do nothing except observe. Every time you think about money, talk about money, or touch money, notice your internal reaction. No judgment, no correction. Just honestly witness the real emotion. Is it anxiety, fear, insecurity, or a sense of lack? Only when you face the signal you're currently broadcasting can you begin to change it. On the second day, you begin clearing the old signals. Sit quietly by yourself and write down all the limiting beliefs you've ever heard, believed, or repeated in your mind. To be rich, you must cheat. I don't know how to manage money. Yeah, I don't need much, just enough to get by. Every statement you write is a thread that has unconsciously tied you down. When you've finished writing, read each line and silently say, I choose not to carry this anymore. It's not just symbolic, it's a frequency cut with the past, allowing you to reset the map for your future signal. On the third day, you create a new image. Visualize a different version of yourself. A person living in abundance, calm, without rushing, without money stress. Not a grand fantasy, but a natural, light, and deserving state. Hold that image in your mind each morning upon waking. Every time you prepare to spend money, each time you step into a space where you want to elevate your worth. Don't hope for anything to change immediately. Just broadcast that image with deep conviction. This is the real me. I'm returning to my original frequency. On the fourth day, you act. Nothing drastic is needed. A small, symbolic act is enough. paying a bill with gratitude instead of resentment, giving away a small amount of money intentionally, declining a job that no longer reflects your true worth. Any action is a signal, and that action tells your subconscious you've made a new choice. On the 5th day, you look into the mirror, not to check your appearance, but to declare your true nature. I am a person of value, and money is the natural response to the value I bring. You might feel awkward, but don't stop. The subconscious doesn't need evidence, it only needs repetition. And one day you'll notice your body begins to believe what you're saying because you've said it more often than you've fed your fear. On the 6th day, you clean your space, not for physical tidiness, but because your field needs a place to reside. An old wallet, cluttered bills, a messy desk, all are echoes of the chaotic energy within you. Clean, not for others, but to show yourself you're preparing to receive something bigger. Prosperity doesn't enter where stagnant energy lives. It needs space, and you are the one who opens that door. On the 7th day, you do nothing but give thanks. Sit still, breathe deeply, and give thanks, not just for what you have, but for what has yet to come that you believe is already on its way. Thank you that I have changed. Thank you that new financial flow is finding its path to me. Thank you that I am living in the frequency I've chosen. When you give thanks for no reason, you've entered a completely different vibrational state, the state of someone who isn't waiting to become, but who is already embodying what they desire. You cannot fake broadcasting a new signal. The universe doesn't respond to pretense, but if you truly live in alignment with what you've chosen, for just 7 days uninterrupted, you will begin to feel a movement rising from deep within. No one needs to validate it. No miracle is required. Because the real miracle isn't outside, it lies in the moment you dare to believe, I can recalibrate the financial frequency of my life. Starting from within, starting now. You don't need to wait for success to start acting like a successful person. In fact, it is precisely by behaving as if you've already achieved what you desire that you create a reality aligned with it. Every decision you make is a directive sent to your subconscious, and the subconscious will do everything in its power to keep you consistent with the image you've chosen to live by. When you make decisions from fear, you're telling your subconscious that you are small, lacking, and unworthy. But when you make decisions from belief in your future self, you send a powerful signal. I already am that person. I'm simply living in accordance with my true nature. And your financial field will begin to shift in that direction. Imagine this: if you were already a successful person with financial freedom and solid self-worth, how would you handle your current problem? How would you respond to rejection? Which project would you choose among vague opportunities? Would you dare to decline a small gain to uphold your long-term value? The truth is, most people make decisions from a place of fear. They ask, what if I get it wrong? Or what if I lose money? But successful people don't frame questions that way. They ask, what will I lose in the long run if I don't dare to do this? Or is this choice consistent with the person I'm becoming? This shift in questioning is what creates the shift in outcome. The subconscious can't tell what is real from what is imagined. It only responds to the emotional signals you repeatedly send. So if every morning you wake up and live as someone who's still struggling to make ends meet, you're simply replaying the old signal and drawing in the same old results. But if you start practicing living as someone confident, abundant, and wise, even if you don't yet have it all, then that very state begins to redraw the map of your life. Action is not the result of success, it is the foundation of it. You don't need to spend money like the rich, but you can choose how you manage time, respond to failure, and speak to yourself as someone who knows their value and trusts the path they've chosen. When faced with obstacles, the average person looks for an excuse to retreat. Someone acting from the future sees the challenge as a signal to optimize, not something to avoid. When they see others succeed, those trapped in jealousy think they're just lucky. But those living from the future think, that's a reflection of what's waiting for me if I keep moving forward. Strangely enough, When you act as if you've already succeeded, the choices you make begin to change. You no longer accept offers that compromise long-term value. You invest in what elevates you rather than what offers temporary emotional relief. You learn to say no clearly and yes selectively. Every step you take, no matter how small, carries a steady vibration. I'm living from past memories. I'm living from the future I've already chosen. This is not delusion. This is how you reprogram yourself through behavior. You don't need to wait for belief to begin. It's consistent behavior that creates solid belief. Just like an actor stepping onto the stage, at first they are only playing the role. But after hundreds of rehearsals, they no longer have to pretend. They become the role, naturally, effortlessly. So do you. If you consistently act like the person you wish to become, eventually you will no longer be trying. You will be that version in every decision, every word, every energy you radiate. The most important question isn't how do I get money? The real question is who will I be when I have money? And do I dare to live as that person starting right now? If your answer is yes, then every step you take will begin to resonate with the reality you are moving toward. You're not chasing success, you are living success, and that is what causes all the right opportunities to find you, not by chance, not by luck, but because you've recalibrated the route, your frequency of presence. And the world cannot ignore a signal that is broadcast with such clarity, commitment, and wholeness. You're not truly chasing money, you're seeking a state of being. That state may be called freedom, peace, worthiness, or abundance. But when you mistake money as the destination, you begin to sacrifice too much. And in the end, you lose the very feeling you thought you'd gain once a certain number appeared in your account. Financially mature individuals never see money as salvation. They understand. Money is merely an indicator reflecting the level of inner maturity. And for that reason, wealth is not a goal. It is the inevitable, unstoppable result of someone who has mastered themselves from within. The information to protect. You can see this clearly when observing people who have won the lottery or unexpectedly inherited large fortunes. Within just a few years, most return to their starting point. Some even go bankrupt. Why? Because the external flow of money surpassed their internal capacity to receive and manage it. They were not mature enough to govern, sustain, or expand that flow. And money, like a powerful stream, will leave any place that lacks inner boundaries. Now you understand why some people earn a lot yet constantly feel anxious, afraid, and lost? It's because their inner world still lives in a state of scarcity, even if the outside appears abundant. Inner maturity doesn't come from age. It comes from your ability to recognize the true motive behind your actions, your capacity to take responsibility without excuses, and your willingness to sit with fear instead of letting it lead. A person may appear to be chasing success, but in truth, they're just trying to prove their worth to their parents. Another might be investing in finance, but their deepest drive is fear. Fear of poverty, fear of abandonment, fear of not being respected. If you haven't purified your motives, even when money arrives, you won't keep it for long, because your subconscious is still broadcasting from a frequency of insecurity. Conversely, those who are truly wealthy begin from within. They invest in clarity instead of just strategies. They develop inner strength instead of merely enhancing skills. They don't need to shout to prove their worth because their presence already carries an energy that inspires trust. When a person is clear, consistent, and awake, money will naturally flow toward them. No manipulation needed, no schemes required. Their energy field is strong enough to resonate with high-quality opportunities, people on the same frequency, and resources that match the values they emit. Inner maturity is when you can say no to things that don't align, even if they're tempting. When you dare to stay still in the gap without results, instead of rushing into cheap choices to fill your unease. When you know you don't need success to feel worthy. You are worthy even during the journey of becoming. And it is that feeling which sustainably attracts all good things toward you. You want to be truly wealthy? Ask yourself, how mature are you in the way you respond to failure? Do you still blame circumstances or others? Or have you learned to find a lesson and move forward with a student's mindset? Do you have the patience to sow seeds without demanding an immediate harvest? Can you uphold your values when no one praises or recognizes you? If your answer is yes, you've gone further than most can see. And most importantly, when you focus on becoming a better version of yourself, instead of merely trying to have more, then money, relationships, health, and recognition will come as secondary rewards. You don't have to chase them, because the energy of someone who has matured internally will always attract external abundance. Not because they're lucky, but because they are aligned at the root. Inner strength is the only asset no one can take from you. And when you invest deeply enough in it, everything else falls into place. That's why Napoleon Hill said, you must become the person who can attract success before you can actually have success. The question isn't where you are right now. The question is, which direction are you growing in, and are you willing to commit fully to true inner growth? Wealth is not the destination. It is the sign that you are on the right inner journey, and when you begin to live as someone who clearly knows what matters, what's real and what's aligned, you'll no longer need to force success. You just need to keep expanding from within. Everything else will arrive as an unavoidable consequence. No seed sprouts immediately after being sown. All sustainable life begins in darkness. You may not see the process, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. Just like when you plant a bamboo seed, it can take up to 5 years just to grow a few inches above ground. But throughout that entire time, it's silently building a vast root system underneath, preparing for an explosive growth that no one can stop. Life is the same. Every great transformation requires a beneath the soil phase, a time when you learn, adjust, fail, and mature in silence. But most people quit right in this phase. They think they've taken the wrong path, when in fact the tree is simply taking time to root. They strain to see immediate results instead of staying centered and continuing to nourish the process. They rush to judge themselves for not having external achievements, forgetting that inner change is the essential foundation. And so they uproot the seed before its roots have a chance to anchor, just because they lack the patience to trust the process. If you're in a stage where no one is praising you, no one is noticing, there's no money coming in, no clear milestones, understand this: it's not failure, it's compression before expansion. You're not behind. You're building the base. And when the base is strong enough, you won't have to rush upward to prove anything. You will stand firm and rise naturally, without strain, without pretense. Growth time is not the time to gain. It's the time to become. Become someone deep enough to absorb the lesson, awake enough not to react automatically, humble enough to start over when necessary, and then, one day, you'll step into the light, no longer a copy of anyone else, but the original version of yourself, grounded, clear, unhurried. You can't force time to bloom. All you can do is tend the soil, water it, remove the weeds from your mind, and trust that if you sow the right seed the right way at the right time, then sprouting is inevitable. But if you interrupt the process, doubt yourself, and keep changing paths out of fear, you'll ruin the seed before it even has a chance to grow. Maturity is learning to stay with the days that show no signs, yet still believe as if something beautiful is on its way. The universe doesn't operate on your schedule. It follows the law of maturation. Every real success must pass through a winter where you see nothing, but are quietly preparing for a great harvest. If you're studying, practicing, failing, doubting yourself, but still moving forward, then you're in the right place. Don't withdraw. Don't demand quick results. Keep sowing with the dedication of someone who knows No process is meaningless. Every small silent step is accumulating strength for a future leap. There's a strange power that only comes to those who have the patience to remain in darkness without losing their way. It's inner strength, the force that will protect you from arrogance when success comes and from panic when adversity hits. When you learn to respect the growth period, you'll no longer be hasty nor envious of others, because you know everyone is on their own process, and any flower that blooms in its rightful season will shine brightly without comparison. As Napoleon Hill emphasized, success never precedes preparation. If you're in the preparation phase, be grateful for it. Don't try to bloom when you don't have roots yet. Don't try to harvest when you haven't truly sown with commitment. Don't rush to judge yourself by your current outer state, because the greatest thing is happening within you, day by day, hour by hour, and when the time comes, you won't need to shout to be heard. Life itself will make way for those who have quietly prepared long enough, deep enough, and truthfully enough. Honoring the phase beneath the soil is proof that you are mature enough for wealth, because only when you no longer need to hurry, no longer need to show off, no longer need to prove, are you truly strong. And in that strength, money, opportunities, credibility, trust will come as natural consequences, not because they are given to you, but because you've grown deep enough to be worthy of them. Money is not paper. It is also not just a number in your bank account. Money is a form of energy, like electricity, like light, like magnetism. And like all other forms of energy, it moves through the principle of resonance. Whatever signal you emit, it will respond to that exact frequency. If you constantly send out signals of fear, scarcity, and doubt, then no matter how hard you work, money will approach hesitantly or arrive and then disappear. Conversely, if you emit a frequency of abundance, trust, gratitude, and readiness to receive, then money will not only come, it will stay. Throughout this journey, you have walked through principles that are not new but often forgotten, that money does not respond merely to actions, but to the energy beneath those actions. That you do not need to chase money, you need to synchronize with it. That saying, "I don't have money," is not a harmless phrase, but a signal commanding the universe on how much prosperity you allow into your life. And that every effort to improve your financial situation from the outside is useless if inside you're still operating from the old patterns: fear of being wrong, fear of lack, fear of loss. You've learned to observe your true emotions whenever you think about money, because that is the most honest indicator of the frequency you're broadcasting. You've come to understand that every intentional action, from your thoughts, your words, to your reactions, is constantly sending signals outward. And if you want to change the response you get from the world, you must begin within. Change your energy, change your signal, change how you define yourself and your worth. Because money does not come to make you feel valuable. It comes because you've already become valuable enough to hold it without losing yourself. Money arrives when you live in alignment with the role of a true value creator, without gimmicks, without needing to prove anything. When you live as someone who knows who they are serving, what they are offering the world, and who is consistent with their deepest values, then money doesn't need to be lured in. It will come on its own, because the energy you emit becomes the most refined invitation to every opportunity on the same frequency. You've also seen the truth that truly wealthy people are not always the ones who work the hardest, but those who think and act from a different frequency. They are not pulled by fear. They do not make decisions out of urgency. They do not rush into every opportunity out of fear of missing out. They choose from a place of inner clarity. They say no more than they say yes, because they understand not every money stream is worthy of the energy they've cultivated for years. And that very discernment makes money come as a reward, not as an illusion to be chased. Where you are on this journey doesn't matter. What matters is What signal will you emit from now on? No one can block the flow of money from coming to you if you are clear, clean, and mature enough to receive it as a steward, not a dependent. You don't need to shout, "I need money." You need to live as someone who already knows they are worthy of prosperity. You don't need to beg, you need to resonate, because energy never lies, and life never betrays those who transmit truthfully. The most important question now is no longer, how do I get money? But what signal am I sending out every day? Are you acting from a frequency of abundance, or still being pulled by old patterns you haven't yet seen? Are you speaking about money with a tone of gratitude, or with the heaviness of fear? Do you dare invest in yourself first, instead of continuing to hope the world gives you results immediately? The entire process you've walked through up to this point can be distilled into one core principle. Money is the most honest feedback about the frequency you are living at. And the miracle is, you can change that frequency at any time. All it takes is your willingness to clear your thoughts, redefine your identity, and live as if you are already whole. Not pretending, not performing for results, but living in alignment with your true potential, so that everything else becomes just a natural consequence. Money doesn't respond to prayers, it responds to signals. And you are the one transmitting that signal every second of every day. You were never meant to chase money. You were not born to be someone who begs for prosperity to enter your life. From the moment you begin to recognize your true inner worth, you are no longer the seeker. You are the current. You are the transmitter and receiver. You are the place where prosperity flows naturally, effortlessly, without having to prove anything. When you live from a place of inner clarity, when you act from a true sense of abundance, not just in your words, but in every reaction, every choice, you don't need to run after money, because money will begin to move through you like an unobstructed stream. Prosperity only needs a clean, clear, undistorted channel. And if you've come this far, if you've restructured your thinking, released old patterns, and dared to live as someone worthy of good things, then you are that channel. Money has no emotions. It simply responds. It flows to the place where matching energy is being consistently emitted. When you still think, I have to find money, I have to work hard to get it, you are unintentionally playing the role of someone disconnected from the current of prosperity, as if it is outside of you, as if you must earn the right to receive it. But in truth, money does not come because you are rewarded or lucky. It comes because you are living like a river, clean enough for water to flow through, without leaking, without blockage, without being driven by fear or doubt. You don't need more get-rich tricks. You need to live by a single principle. I am the place where prosperity is allowed to pass through, to stay, to multiply, and continue flowing. When you stop limiting yourself with outdated definitions like, I must be better than others, I must win this game, I must have more to feel safe, you begin to access an energy level very few people reach, the frequency of groundedness. From there, you become someone who no longer demands, but simply receives. No longer panics when money is slow to arrive, but understands that everything is being arranged in a timeline far more perfect than anything you could plan. Like a forest that does not search for rain, but knows how to hold water when the rain comes. You don't need to search. You need to be ready to receive. And this readiness does not come from blind belief. It comes from the work you've done to clear away fears, poverty patterns, invisible limits you once carried from childhood or absorbed from society. You've dared to look inward, dared to admit it's not that you lack talent, it's that you lacked inner alignment. And once you've truly achieved that, you no longer need to do anything special. Your presence is already enough. Maybe you haven't seen a big change in your bank account yet. Maybe people around you still doubt. Maybe you're not yet in the spotlight. But if something inside you has shifted, if you're truly emitting a new frequency, then everything else is just a matter of time. And remember, you don't have to wait until you have a lot of money to live like someone who is wealthy. It's the very act of choosing to live as someone worthy in how you speak, how you act, how you decide, that opens the door for money to begin flowing in. You don't chase money, you align with it. You don't possess prosperity, you are the place through which prosperity flows and multiplies. When you understand this, you will no longer be shaken by short-term fluctuations. You will no longer flinch when a large expense arises. You will no longer be controlled by the fear of enough or not enough, because you know the current never stops flowing as long as you keep your inner world clean. No panic, no force, no demands. Prosperity will always return. Napoleon Hill once said, you cannot have anything you don't first become in your mind, and now after everything you've been through, you are no longer someone trying to become prosperous, you are already prosperity. Because you have chosen to live from within, you have chosen to trust the process. You have chosen to be the sower, not the one waiting to reap, and from that, what you seek is no longer how much money, but how many lives can be transformed through the current flowing through me? That is when you are truly wealthy. Not because of a number, but because of essence. Not to prove, but because you've understood who you are. Not to possess, but because you've become one with the law. And that is a kind of wealth no one can take from you, not changing markets, not crashing economies, not even the wildest storms. Because you are no longer the one chasing. You are the source where everything begins. You are the channel, you are the current, you are the one holding the key to your own life, and you are ready to live that way forever.